Dear Cheri, how much is a good CBD dose for a beginner? I get variations of this question all the time. And even though it's not what you want to hear, the answer is there's no single one answer that fits for everyone. Everything having to do with cannabis dosing, whether it's CBD or THC, is highly individualized. So there's three things to keep in mind before we even get going. One, everybody responds differently to cannabis, and not just a little bit differently, drastically different. Everybody has different needs when it comes to cannabis dosing, and not just a little bit different, drastically different. And third and most confusing, cannabis is biphasic, and we're going to discuss a little bit more about that in a minute. But too much cannabis is not dangerous, as you may already know, whether it's THC or CBD. But because people don't feel the effects of CBD in the same way they do THC, they often think that dosing is not so important and that they can just take a lot of it. And technically they can, but that doesn't mean that they should. Because too much CBD, while it won't make you feel uncomfortably high like THC, is not necessarily what's therapeutically best. Let me explain. I have a graphic example of this. About a year ago, High Times gave me an assignment to write about CBD edibles. And I was really excited about this assignment because I had been reading story after story about how great CBD is for depression. As I suffer from depression, I thought this was going to be an easy win. Well, much to my surprise, as soon as I started testing the edibles, my depression symptoms got worse, and much worse, and after a few days I just had to beg out of the assignment. So about a year after that, I was interviewing Martin Lee, who's an author and the director of Project CBD. And so I took the opportunity to ask him, why did CBD make my depression symptoms worse when it's supposed to help with it? Well, Martin said it was likely because my dose of CBD was too high. He knew that I was also using THC at the time, and he explained that people using THC need far, far less CBD, sometimes as less as 2.5 milligrams, to get a therapeutic dose. Those using pure CBD will need higher doses. But he also mentioned, and this is really important, so listen up, cannabis is biphasic. And what that means is that a large and a small dose can have completely opposite effects. Let me repeat that. A large or a small dose of cannabis can create opposite effects, which would explain why the CBD was too high and made my depression worse. So, it takes experimentation. That's the big takeaway. Everybody is going to have to experiment to find your ideal dose. And your needs can and do change over time and as your body heals. So how do you start? Well, if you're already using CBD and you're not getting the effects you want, you could try raising or conversely lowering the dose. Especially if you're using THC too, try lowering that dose and you may get better effects. If you're starting from scratch, start with a low dose, maybe 2 to 3 milligrams, and Martin Lee says it's best to take it maybe 2 to 3 times a day rather than one big dose. So take 2 or 3 small doses of, say, 2 milligrams several times a day, and keep that up for several days before you evaluate the effects. I wish I had a more concrete answer to say this is what you should take, but there is no one answer. It takes experimentation.